Welcome back and thank you for keeping it Switch TV. We are live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. On YouTube, you're live as Switch TV News. Send in your feedback to our SMS line 111 and as Switch TV Kenyan at Lincoln, Wombogo. Now, schools have reopened after 10 months break occasioned by the emergence of COVID-19 in the country. Joining me in studio is education expert Jasper Ondimu. Now, Jasper, thank you for creating time. Stakeholders, including Education CS, Professor Magoha, say that social distancing will be a tall order. Is it safe to reopen now? Jasper.
Thank you.
You think it is safe now? We've seen, we are a third world country. We've seen UK, schools in London get closed today. Do you think it is safe, or do you think it's the right time to reopen schools?
It is the right time to reopen schools, and science has actually shown that COVID has been quote unquote very kind to African countries. It has not really ravaged the people as it has in Europe and in the US, and therefore it is the right time to reopen schools. We have UNICEF that has been telling African government open schools because it is more safer to be in school than at home, because in school there is a teacher who ensure that the COVID-19 protocols are adhered to. Earlier on, you had raised the issue of social distancing, and the CS has been very vocal as far as social distancing is concerned, saying that it is not possible to achieve it in schools. A good example is Olympic Primary School in Kibra, where children are so many that you cannot really ensure that that social distancing is sustained. And the CSR said that if the kids have their masks on, then that is going to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. But you have some children, especially the ECD ones, the young ones who cannot put a mask for a very long time because of one reason or the other, monotony, getting bored. And therefore, it is incumbent upon the teachers to be creative and ensure that they guide these particular children as far as mitigating the spread of COVID-19 is concerned.
Elderly teachers and those with underlying conditions have been asked to stay home. Some private schools are not operational. Clearly, there is a growing gap. Can this gap be filled?
It ought to be filled, but I doubt if the government has commitment filling this particular gap, because before the advent of COVID-19, Kenya had a shortage of about 100,000 teachers, and therefore that particular shortage is going to be exacerbated by the retirement of some of these particular teachers who might decide to opt out of teaching. And then you're talking about the private sector as well. Some of these teachers have not been paid since March. Others decided to engage in some business, and that business is bringing quite good returns. Teachers might not go back to the classroom, and therefore the aspect of human resource is quite a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge, especially to the teachers who are going to handle these particular classes, or who are going to fill the gaps of these teachers who are going to they're going to resign or going to retire voluntarily. Therefore, the human resource aspect should be addressed seriously by the CS, because when you talk about quality education, you cannot talk about quality education without human resource aspect. And therefore, the government needs to address that particular matter with the urgency it deserves.
Oh, Jasper, some parents have transferred their students from private to public schools. What is the fate of, of private schools at this rate?
Yes, it is true. There are quite a number of private schools that have closed because most of them were operating on rented places. And when the kids were not in school, that meant that there was no school fees that could enable the proprietors to pay rent. And therefore, these schools have closed. And this case has been quite informative on this, saying that allow these particular children to go in public school, again raising the issue that I have actually talked about a short while ago about the human resource aspect. Now, these children are going to public schools, and the government has not increased the number of teachers. Therefore, these teachers who are already in public schools are going to suffer because of the high numbers. And it is time as a country we think about private schools, because in the Republic of Kenya, the government has really failed to ensure quality education in the public sector. That is why we've seen an avalanche of parents going to the private schools. And it will be unfortunate for us to allow the private to just wither away like that. That is why some are asking for loans for grants to enable them, sprout again, but the government did not make any intervention to these particular private schools. And therefore, it is going to be really a very tough situation, especially even for the children who are
Jasper,
going to public
Jasper,
schools. You know,
worst
these
worst
cases
case
are
scenario, Jasper. Worst case scenario. What if we have an overwhelming COVID-19 situation in schools? What happens then?
The first case is that we should not panic. We should not panic. We have other countries like Tanzania, though some people are bashing Tanzania for sometimes not being transparent, but Tanzania opened schools earlier than us, and we've not had a very really dangerous scenario there. We've not had number of deaths going up. So we expect that here in Kenya, if we observe what we've been told by the professionals, then I hope all is going to be well. And as I said earlier on, that science has also shown that kids are least affected by COVID-19. And therefore, for me, I expect all the best. I don't really hope for a bad scenario. And I pray that things are going to be good, because we cannot afford having children at home again.
Jasper, thank you for creating time. Now, moving on, 10 governors from the Central Region Economic Bloc have strongly criticized Murang'a Senator Irungu Kang'ate for writing to President Kenyatta, warning him of the likelihood of the BBI being rejected in the region. The governors have accused Kang'ate of breaching official protocol and addressing the president directly on the issue. Elsewhere, Justice Anthony Mrime has barred Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission from conducting Nairobi governor by-election until several cases challenging former Governor Mike Sonko's impeachment are heard and determined. Moving on, the nationwide curfew imposed as a measure to curb the spread of COVID-19 has been extended to 12 March, a move which has been received with mixed reactions, as Lillian Minor reports.
The dusk to dawn curfew has been in force for 10 months now, since the confirmation of the first COVID-19 case in the country. The executive order decreed by President Kenyatta comes at a time when Kenya has been recording dwindling numbers of COVID-19 cases. The revenue streams for business owners within the entertainment sector in Kenya have been adversely affected due to limitation of the number of revelers allowed at a time and the limited time allowed for revelers to make merry. The profit margins are set to thin even more with the extension of the curfew, further raising concerns among business owners and stakeholders.
Sisi kama kampuni ama as workers itatu affect kidogo, because hiyo miezi for that time tumekuwa on curfew, kazi imekuwa chini sana. Mkiangalia mnaona saizi tuko na meza mbili, ambapo mbeleni before mambo ya COVID ikuje, hii place ilikuwa inajanga.
Majority of Kenyans are uncertain of what lies ahead as far as their job security is concerned, since it is expected that most establishments will resort to laying off their staff in a bid to cope with the expected economic meltdown this year.
Kuna watu wengi sana watapata kazi, na pia sisi tuko in a risk of, because hatujui tunaweza futwa ama tunaweza endelea tukufanya hivyo.
The past 10 months have been one roller coaster ride that has made a section of Kenyans adapt to the tough prevailing times, resigning everything to fate.
Ni kama kawaida tu, tumeweza kuzoea, tumezoea mawi. Kila siku kukimbishana tu hadi kila kitu imeweza kurudi tu sawa.
While the situation appears to be gloomy, some citizens support the curfew extension, stating that people should just utilize the available time to continue earning their livelihood without focusing too much on the negative.
I think that's enough time for us. But this is sasa kutumia that advantage, to take that advantage kufanya vitu zingine. Let us do our hustle. At the end of the day, we can get something.
Even with the extension of the curfew for 60 more days, the biggest hope for most Kenyans this year is the recovery of the economy. For Switch TV, my name is Lilian Maina.
Thank you, Lillian Miner. A representative of the National Education Union has reiterated that the government's decision to reopen most of the primary schools in England on January 4th is a mistake. Our schools are unsafe for kids and unsafe for education workers. Various unions have told their members not to physically return to classrooms for at least 2 weeks.
The expert body made it very clear on the 22nd of December that schools are now playing a significant part in the spreading of the infection, and as such we now consider schools to be unsafe, and that we want all schools to be closed for at least 2 weeks while we see how this virus develops. Some parts of the country there are very high levels of infection, and those infection levels are not going down. So we think the schools are unsafe for the kids and unsafe for the education workers. Many teachers are very anxious about going back into the workplace because they've seen what's happened in the weeks before Christmas and during the Christmas holiday in infection levels. They don't think that having classes of over 30 as a bubble, or in secondary schools maybe over 200 children in a year group, does enable those schools to operate safely when we're seeing that the new virus is much more transmissible. Our decision to call upon members not to return to schools physically in most cases is based on the science, and we think that the situation does need to be reviewed regularly, and we will follow the science. When the science says it's safe for education staff to return to schools, we will absolutely support that. Frankly, it feels very inept to us in terms of what is being decided by the government at a national level. So we're very disappointed about that, and we don't think that it demonstrates a real care or understanding for ensuring that education during this pandemic can be maintained in a safe manner.
Well, that story wraps up our news broadcast tonight. Many thanks for watching. My name is Lincoln Obogo. Our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Good evening.